morning. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Thank you, everyone. David, you were extremely generous in your comments, and I thank you for that. And it is an honor and a privilege for me to be here with all of you this afternoon. And the reason why I am here is to join my voice to that of David Bossie, and also to thank and congratulate Phyllis Schlafly, the woman that we all admire so much. And I have some words that I would like to share about Phyllis Schlafly and my esteem that I know I share with all of you for her. But before I do that, if you would just indulge me, I'd like to say just a few words about this great film that you all just saw, From the Heartland by Citizens United. I just want to say a word about the vision that David Bossie and Steve Bannon, the director, had. Early on, they came to talk to me over at Capitol Hill, because this movie isn't about Michele Bachmann or Phyllis Schlafly, or even really about all the remarkable women that you saw in that film. That film was about you. It was about you. And it was about the most remarkable movement that rose spontaneously from the earth in modern times, called the Tea Party movement. And the Tea Party movement, as Nancy Pelosi tried to call it, AstroTurf. In other words, this is some fake movement. They were scared. They had the bejeebers scared out of them, because this was more real than anything anyone had ever seen. This wasn't a politically manufactured commercial that you paid millions of dollars for. This was really the spirit of 1776 that has been successfully transferred from every generation of about 20 generations of America. Now, the spirit of 1776, in my mind, goes back to the time of the Pilgrims and the time of the founding of Jamestown. That's the beginning of that American ideal, and that ideal from the time of Jamestown and the Puritans, that was formulated in 1776 into one of the most magnificent documents of all time, the Declaration of Independence, which is essentially our mission statement as a nation, which formed then the basis for our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. All of these founding documents that we have revered and loved and held up for generations in this country, we saw them threatened like no other time in the last 2 to 4 years. And so all of you and people across the United States came together under a banner that quite literally was made and fashioned out of the parchment of the Declaration, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. That's our common cause. That's what we came under. And that Tea Party movement continues today. It has not abated. And we remain the verve and the vibrancy that gave the Republicans the ability to pry that gavel out of Speaker Pelosi's hands in January. That would not have happened with your country club Republicans. And God love the country club Republicans. I am not dissing them. I am only saying that what won this election victory is the broadest coalition. Because we didn't just bring Republicans to the polls, did we? We brought independents, we brought libertarians, we brought Constitution Party, we brought independents, we brought Democrats in to come and vote for people who decided this is enough. And so that's what this movie did. This movie, From the Heartland, that you have just saw, and it's Dave Bossie and Steve Bannon, and their vision, when they came to speak to me on Capitol Hill, they were wise enough to understand that this is a big deal, this movement. Let's put it on film. Let's let people see this. So I want to encourage you to not just enjoy what you saw today. I don't know if they're selling the movie or not, but you should get a copy of this film. And I encourage all of you, take it back to your local high school, show it. Take it back to your local college, show it. To your young Republicans, show it. Your homeschool convention, whatever it is that you're involved with, your place of work, your church, your friends, invite people into your house, make popcorn, whatever it is, show them this film. Because ultimately, this is about the debt-paying generation, those that are about the college age, what they're about to inherit, and we'll go one way or another. And I think that was the point that Steve Bannon and Dave Bossy and Citizens United wanted you to take out of all of this. They wanted to challenge you to be inspired. We're going to go one way or another, and the beauty is in America, we get to choose. We get to choose and write our future, and what will it be? We have a great start with the Tea Party movement, and I really think they did a marvelous job, and I would ask you to join me in a round of applause for Steve Bannon and Dave Bossy and their vision. Thank you for what they did. Well, in a few moments, we are going to have a panel that's intended to inspire conservative young women. And this place, I'll tell you, is crawling with conservative young women. Yay for conservative young women! You're our future with our conservative young men. But if for some reason you're not able to stay for that, I'll be a part of that panel. Or if you just want an abbreviated version, then I want to share with you two of the most inspiring words that I could ever give to any conservative young man or woman. And those two words are simply this: Phyllis Schlafly. Phyllis Schlafly. This is the highlight of my time here at CPAC, to be able to talk just for a moment about Phyllis Schlafly. She is my personal heroine, and I know for many of you that is the same story because of what she has meant. Many of you have invested your energy and your time and your treasure in the conservative movement. You've given a lot up for the last 2 years, and especially for this election cycle. You know what it is to fight for the values that we cherish, but few are the people who have done it for decades and who in fact wrote the manual for our movement, even in the face of what was sometimes brutal opposition to the left. You think Chris Matthews is tough? You have no idea what Phyllis Schlafly has put up with for really the entire modern time. Phyllis Schlafly does understand. She has been selfless. She's been unceasing in her promotion and defense of the family and of the principles that make our country great. And that's why today, Phyllis Schlafly, you will be receiving CPAC's Lifetime Achievement Award. Phyllis Schlafly is America's sweetheart. She is our sweetheart. I have a few more things to say, so we will give her her award, but let me finish. I need to tell you a little bit more. For some of the wonderful young conservative women that are here, you need to know her story. Other than she still remains today an absolute gorgeous knockout. And Phyllis, I think you're 39, if I remember right. But she has been a leader of the conservative movement since the 1964 publication of her book, A Choice Not an Echo. And really, the truth be told, she's been in this game since the 1940s. Really, you need to go back that far. It sold 3 million copies out of her garage. That's what this little homemaker from Alton, Illinois did. It is widely credited for its role in transforming the Republican Party. So just realize this is not a new thing to transform the Republican Party. Phyllis Schlafly was doing this in the early 60s as well. She helped to bring about the nomination of a conservative candidate to carry the party's banner in that year. Because that candidate, Barry Goldwater, lost, as you know, in 1964. But Phyllis Schlafly's book laid critical groundwork for the future. As Ann Coulter, who I adore, wrote, without Phyllis Schlafly, without that book, it is very possible that Ronald Reagan would never have been elected president. Now think of that. Phyllis Schlafly has been the author or editor of more than 20 books. She is a genius, a certified genius. While she may be best known for her writings on the family and traditional values, she's also co-authored vital works that skillfully dissect American foreign policy. When I first came to know of her, that's how I came to know of her, because of her brilliance in writing to warn America of national security threats. and she exposed those who would capitulate to other nations. In 1972, Phyllis Schlafly took on a leading role in the pro-family movement when she started the national volunteer organization known as Eagle Forum. That was also the beginning of her successful decade-long battle against radical feminists and the radical Equal Rights Amendment. Let me read to you again from Ann Coulter, who summarized that battle like this. When Schlafly took up her battle against the ERA, the Senate had passed it 84-8. The House had passed it 354 to 23. The ERA was already written into both the Republican and Democrat platforms. 30 states had approved it in the first year after it was sent to the states for ratification. Only 8 more states were needed, but the ERA had not yet faced Phyllis Schlafly. Over the next 8 years, thanks to Schlafly and the Eagle Forum, only 5 states ratified it, but 5 other states rescinded their earlier ratifications. For her courage in that debate alone, Phyllis Schlafly is worthy of this honor today. Thank you for defeating the ERA, Phyllis. But that was just the early years. But that was just the early years of her service to our conservative movement. Again, Ann Coulter writes of Phyllis. She was nearly the first woman ever to attend Harvard Law School, though it did not then admit women. Schlafly's Harvard professors found her so brilliant that they offered to make an exception for her. She declined. Instead, she got married. Take a note, girls. Remember this. As a woman who's been married 32 years, it's a good decision. Instead, she married. She raised 6 amazingly accomplished children. And later, she attended law school when she was in her 50s, all while fighting the establishment in her free time. She's brilliant. She's beautiful. She's principled. She's articulate. She's tireless. And most important, she's absolutely fearless. Many years ago, I picked up my first copy of the Phyllis Schlafly report, and ever since, she has been a mentor and example to me as I was a young mother at home raising our 5 children and our 23 foster children. And I was so happy to have something to read, let me tell you, other than Mother Goose. Her courage to stand in the face of the slanderous insults of her opponents established a template for conservative women like me and like you to follow her into the battle for our nation's traditional values. It's a sad reality that Phyllis Schlafly and those of us who have followed in her footsteps have had to fight so hard to defend these values that have made our country so great. But since we've had to go to battle for the traditional and unrivaled value of the family, for the preciousness of human life from conception until natural death, for the uniquely wonderful role that only a mother can fulfill in the life of a child, and for a government that would never lose sight of our nation's exceptionalism as the indispensable nation of the world. Since conservative women must stand up and fight for these things, then we are indeed blessed to have been led in that unyielding work and example of CPAC's Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Phyllis Schlafly. And I asked Phyllis, I think about a year ago, would you take a photo with me, Phyllis? And I have this photo in my office. I have very few photos with famous people because this is who I want to be known by. I want to be like this woman, my hero, Phyllis Schlafly. Would you welcome her to the platform, Phyllis Schlafly? I will. Allow me to read the words that are on this award. And for everyone in the room, especially for the young people who may not be as well acquainted with Mrs. Schlafly, you have the privilege of having your eyes gaze upon a living legend in this last century. There's probably not been another woman in the United States that has had more influence on our nation than the woman who is receiving this award today. We are all privileged to be in her presence today as she receives this award. The Citizens United Lifetime Achievement Award, presented on behalf of 500,000 Citizens United members and supporters to Phyllis Schlafly for your tireless efforts as the inspirational leader of generations of conservative women, for your unwavering commitment to liberty and freedom, February 11th, 2011. You're an amazing individual. God bless you. You are a gift to us. Thank you very much.
Oh, Michele, you are just too much. How can I respond to all that? I guess my life is just simply an example that we don't owe anything to the feminist movement. We can do it all. We can take on all the powers that be and win. So that's really the lesson. Now, if I'm a legend, we need new leaders, and that and that's what the conservative movement has been a little bit lacking in lately. But I hope you noticed that Michele Bachmann was the star of this show. She is the best person in Congress. She is a wonderful leader. She's done her homework. She's smart. She knows what happened before. And she's got the courage to stand out there on the steps of the Capitol and tell those guys what to do. And that's what we want. And I hope you will follow her and take her leadership. It is important that you do your homework and know what came before and what battles the conservatives have fought before. And Michele is, of course, right in pushing through the repeal of Obamacare and right on everything else that I can think of. So I hope you support her in whatever she's doing and show that film around. And she is just a wonderful example to everybody. I want to tell you whether the feminists do a lot of attacking of Sarah Palin, mostly for unreal, unfair things. But one thing she has done is to make feminism a hot issue in these days. It's being talked about and blogged about all over the place. And people are asking, what is a feminist? Now, one of these modern feminists just defined it in the Washington Post. She said, feminism is the dogma that we live in a patriarchy and it has to end. And then another one of these leading feminists, Linda Hirschman, said the litmus test for a feminist is to support abortion rights and Obamacare. So they know what it's all about. And our people are not feminists and don't want to be feminists because the feminists try to paint American women as victims. And I was so happy to see that girl on your screen say, I'm not a victim. We're not victims. We're the American women are the most fortunate women who ever lived on the face of the earth. So the feminists are always talking about women taking over and women's empowerment and being active in politics. Of course, we've been active in politics for quite some time and doing very well at it, thank you. And this year, there were a lot of new women elected. We've got 7 or 8 new women in the U.S. House, and we've got a new woman in the Senate, and we've got 3 new women governors. But that wasn't what the feminists planned, because they're all Republicans, and they're all pro-life. That wasn't the way they planned it. Of course, they don't believe that in this terrible patriarchy that we suffer in, women can possibly be successful. You never hear them talking about Condoleezza Rice or Margaret Thatcher. And of course, that's why they hate Sarah Palin, because she is successful. She's got a fine career, she's got a cool husband, and she's got a lot of kids. Besides that, it's just acid in the wounds of the feminists. She's pretty, even. They can't take it. And they don't know what to do about it, but they keep talking about her. But at any rate, the feminists are very much in control of the media, of academia. In fact, in most women's studies courses, you can't get a degree in women's studies unless you accept the notion that there really isn't any difference between men and women. It's just a social construct that people create by giving dolls to girls and trucks to boys. And we all know that's nuts, but anyway, that's one of their ideologies. And they just can't deal with life the way it is. They propose this victimhood all the time. And it's so unfortunate because, well, I grew up during the Depression, and I never thought I was a victim. In fact, I tell the young people today, when I was growing up, you have all these problems you have to deal with. When I was growing up, we only had one problem, that was money. But we worked hard and grew up to be what they call the greatest generation. And I worked my way through college on the night shift, firing 30 and 50 caliber ammunition to test it for the government. So we've been firing away ever since. But the feminists are very much in control. For example, there's one brave Harvard professor, his name is Harvey Mansfield, and he wrote a book in which he said that the feminist movement is anti-men, anti-masculine. Incidentally, that's why they've banished 450 college wrestling teams under Title IX. They're anti-marriage, they're pro-divorce and anti-marriage, and they're anti-motherhood. They think of all the oppressions of women in this country. It's the society expects mothers to look after their own babies. And they're anti-morality. And he called them nihilists, and I think he's right. And then Bernard Goldberg, who wrote his book Bias about CBS, said the biggest story you will never see on CBS television is what's wrong with leaving your babies all day in daycare. The feminists won't allow it on. So they do have a control, and they are the female left. And they got Obama to make his first acts as president, pandering to the feminists. When he passed his stimulus bill, we all know that most of the people who lost their jobs were men, but they demanded a meeting, and they got most of the jobs for women. So he could pay off the faction that elected him. And you need to understand that. That's why I'll be autographing my new book called The Flip Side of Feminism, What Conservative Women Know and Men Can't Say. I wanted to say, don't dare say, because they can't. But at any rate, you need to understand, especially the young women, so that you won't get caught with any of the feminist ideology, because they're constantly selling the idea that there really isn't any difference between the sexes. We all know there is. And that they want women to be just as sexually liberated as possible. And they want empowerment. They want the women to be in charge. In fact, what they really want is a matriarchy. Maria Shriver has a new report out, published by one of these think tanks, in which she said we're getting rid of obsolete notions of the family and moving on to a woman's world. That's not what we want. We urge them to be active in politics, like we've been doing in Eagle Forum. Welcome you all to join. We fight lots of battles, and we've won quite a few, but we need all of you in the fight. And we don't sell it just because we're women. We sell it because it's right for America. And I am hopeful and confident that we can carry on the victory that we had last year and make it a big smashing victory until 2012. That's what we're after, and thank you for your help.